Mayor Rick Loeffler of San Clemente hears the concerns and disapproval of the Maritime Surveillance System at a town hall meeting.
Hi, my name is Mike Wexford. I'm a resident of San Clemente. Thank you, gentlemen, for all coming here today. I just want to note that before I retired a few years ago, I retired as Director of Advanced Programs at the Raytheon Surveillance and Sensor Systems Business Unit. And I've worked on over 100 surveillance system development programs. And when I first saw this was coming up, I took a look at it and I said, something doesn't match here. One of the first things you do when you start on a new system development is you figure out what your mission is, and then you figure out what sort of equipment you need to execute that mission. These towers that CBP has been installing for border protection in most of them in desolate areas. That equipment is pretty well matched to that mission. You just see very quickly that that's true. This tower in that position on top of the hill and what they want to do, it was easy for me to see that there's something wrong here. It's not matching what they say they want to do with it. Now, if you look at the lease agreement itself, the word maritime is only in the lease agreement one time, and it's actually in the location reference, so it's irrelevant. So maritime is in the city report a couple of dozen times, but in the contract, one time, and only with respect to position. The word surveillance is only in the contract one time under permitted uses, but it's that one word. Now, I can tell you from my background, there are many, many, many forms of surveillance. And this would give them license to do anything in terms of installing different kinds of surveillance systems. Now, the other real question I would have for somebody is, show me the analysis that says that this complement of sensor systems and equipment can actually execute this mission of interdicting maritime traffic in this environment, dense environment. There's all kinds of other issues that I could point out that would take too long. I question whether they did that analysis. One of the jobs I had once was we had to figure out where to install interceptors for the National Missile Defense System, which was installed around 2000. And I led a group of 100 software engineers modeling that system and how it's going to work. And it took 3 years to do the work, to figure out where to put the interceptors. They're oddly in Vandenberg and up in Alaska, and interceptor farms in those locations can defend the entire country from 1 or 2 or 3 missiles from whoever happens to fire them at us. And that was a very big effort just to figure that out. Don't need anything that big necessarily, but I don't think this equipment matches the mission that they want to execute, and it will probably be a failure, in my opinion. If they have something alternative to prove that I'm wrong, I'd like to see it.
I'm guessing that I think the only one that can answer that question is the DHS, because they're the only ones that know the specific type of equipment that they're installing. And that information was not part of the lease and not part of the agenda report. So, and I don't expect the legal. I can tell you where that location's good for. Covering people.
So, John Hauser, I'm a resident. I'll be a little shorter than my friend Mike, but I won't be as riveting, that's for sure. My concerns well articulated and expressed on the slides. I think are shared by a lot here. So I have just a couple of questions brought up by my lawyer friend. We have a lease, and there are consequences for breach. It seems to me right now pretty low cost if it hasn't been implemented yet. Mm-hmm. So the time to undo this, do something better, is now. It seems to me. And the other two questions. So there's going to be a cost to this, right? The city is taking on some potential liabilities for privacy invasions and such, false arrests, things like that. It can be very costly to defend. Our insurance premiums going to go up as a result for the city. I mean, it's probably a joint powers, but still, somebody's ultimately paying for that.
Yeah, I can't speak to the insurance rates. That would be. You're right. We have a joint powers, and that hasn't been changed yet, as far as I'm aware.
It seems this could have a consequence for that, right?
Yeah, it could, but I don't know. I can't.
Maybe they need to see a Boston.
Yeah. But no, it is a great question, and I think the broader question is the liability risk that we are taking on as a city. Is that worth the cost? And you make a point of what if there's a time to change it, now would be the time. But that would take someone to change their mind on the vote.
Hopefully, people are listening. Yeah. Thanks.
One part of it that I can address is the specific type of tower that they're talking about in the lease and in the agenda report is relocatable. Some would interpret that as portable. So even in the worst case scenario, the equipment's not permanent.
Yeah, and that is a good point. There could be a case where we could move that specific camera to a bluff side instead of on top of the hill itself. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but from talking with legal counsel, that would be the best way to go about changing the contract without breaking the contract.
Hi, Chris Wood, San Clemente resident. If you were to tell me that we were using these cameras to look for Chinese submarines, it would make sense. We've just had 20 million people come across the border, and we're going to build this on taxpayers' dollars to find 11 tanker boats. No, we're not. That's ridiculous. That's not what this is for. And if you want to refer to the Constitution, it says, privacy, governing law enforcement, Fourth Amendment, the Supreme Court has ruled that extends situations where individuals have reasonable expectations of privacy and surveillance, right? So if these cameras are not looking for something other than a bunch of Mexican guys on a boat, because of the way it's built, the way that the system is built, it's not about looking at maritime things. It's not looking for invaders. It's being used as a test bed to see how we can surveil people. And you guys have thrown San Clemente under the bus.
Yeah.
I think what's going on is told two different things with the camera. One, I've told us the camera can surveil 20 miles out. At the same time, it's being told it can only go 5 miles out. So again, we don't know what type of camera is actually being used. But if it is a camera that only goes 5 miles out, well, it's about 2.5 miles away from the coast. So half of its surveillance is actually overlooking our city. I think that is concerning.
Yes, Patricia Holloway, San Clemente, longtime San Clemente resident. I'm a little distressed about the when this first started out. I understood to be a life-saving issue. What the tower was going to identify, panga boats or other vessels on the ocean, and that we'd be able to go and save people's lives or prevent the boat from coming on shore and endangering, beachgoers and fishermen and kids and so on. Or jumping in a car and racing through our neighborhoods, not good. So I have no understanding. It was not discussed at all. How does this work? I mean, is the tower contacting the San Clemente lifeguards? Are they contacting the Coast Guard? Are they contacting Camp Pendleton? I mean, I don't even know how this is supposed to save people's lies. So that's question number one. How does it really work for what I thought was the original purpose? And then can these facilities be hacked? Can they, not only turn their gaze on San Clemente residents, can they swivel around and check out Camp Pendleton? I mean, that's of concern to me. And then can we bring this back to our city council? I would like this, can we please bring this back to our city council for a second look to address some of these questions? Thank you.
So to address the question of specifically how the communication works, these are autonomous systems. So events that are of interest, that are identified in the autonomous system, they flag it and will contact a CPP agent.
I am an attorney. I was with the Public Defender's Office for 10 years, and now I'm a defense attorney in private practice. So I have professionally dealt with law enforcement breaking the rules and being held to account. And unfortunately, hundreds of attorneys have a full-time job based on that. So in the best of circumstances, law enforcement abuses its privilege and goes outside of its scope. Adding into the fact, not to sound trite, but to quote Mark Twain, he literally says, support your country always and your government when it deserves it. Why are we now accommodating an administration that does not deserve our accommodation? Why are we willy-nilly offering not just the $10 contract, but making it easier for them to continue breaking the rules and continue abusing the rights and murdering American citizens? So my question is it too late? Is there even anything we can do at this point to try and rein this in, cancel it, put any form of guardrail on it, or are we just stuck with clearly a lot of people from the community who have come, and I'm interpreting your grumbles, but it seems as though they were timed with my grumbles, and a lot of people are not happy about this. So is it too late? Are we crying over spilled milk? Is there anything that can be done at this point?
I think you went a little bit out of the scope for the city when you talked about the national situation. That's we have to bifurcate that in this particular, so I'm not going to take a stance on that, even though I think I agree with some of the things you said. I think we are waiting to see. There are some people that need to weigh in on this to see what actually will happen. I think it's common knowledge now that the camera's not been installed, and there's probably a reason for that. I think Mike Levin probably has been a part of that, opening up the conversation.